I challenge you to find a species, tribe, or subculture as prevalent to horror as zombies are. Dozens of movies have been made about these things. Almost as many TV shows, each of them painting these creatures in different lights. And in 1985, we were gifted a cult classic, and we learned a lot about these zombies' dietary restrictions. This, of course, is Return of the Living Dead. Let's go ahead and talk about it. We start off with a disclaimer telling us that everything we're about to see happen is all real, which tells you exactly what sort of ride you're in for with this movie. We wind up July 3rd, 1984 at Uneeda Medical Supply, and we meet Frank and we meet Freddy. Now, Freddy is played by the one and only Tom Matthews, who would go on to become Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. And you all know how I feel about Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Freddy is an understudy to Frank. Frank is showing him the ropes, and this is a medical supply house that basically keeps cadavers. Next, we see a group of punk rock, street trash kind of kids. They're just strutting down a sidewalk looking for something to do for the evening. One of them's a pretty clean-cut chick, and we find out that's actually Freddy's girlfriend. She gets the bright idea of, hey, I know Freddy's at work, but he'll be off pretty soon, and Freddy always knows where to party. He always has a good idea for a good time. So the whole crew decides to go to this supply place to track down Freddy. Now, Freddy and Frank are having a conversation in one of the offices, and Frank decides to tell him about the story of Night of the Living Dead. He goes into great detail about what happened and the government's part and everything, and the fact of the matter is the government actually lost some of the containers with that strange, mysterious gas and some of the bodies inside. And guess what? Wouldn't you know it, some of those barrels are right in the basement of Uneeda Medical Supply. Naturally, Freddy wants to go check them out for themselves. They get down there, have a conversation. Freddy asks, hey, if there's gas in these things, are they safe? Frank laughs it off. Of course, U.S. medical grade, this is the good stuff. Slaps the side of it, gas fills the entire room, knocks both men out. And boom, funky music, opening credits, we're off and running with Return of the Living Dead. Great start to this one. And that gas that leaks out winds up traveling upstairs, and it reanimates everything that was dead. That includes butterflies tacked to a wall. That includes these half-dog weird things that apparently people experiment on, which is strange in and of itself. And the medical cadaver that they have in the freezer. Yeah, he's kicking around too. We move away from that, and we see a sunny, palatial estate and a government muckety-muck arriving home to said estate. He's kind of a prick to his wife. He goes straight to his office. He gets on some fancy, super secretive phone and inquires about where his missing, highly sensitive barrels are. They lost them. They can't find them, but I have an idea they're going to come across them sooner rather than later. And we get back to the street trash kids, and there's some familiar faces, some familiar horror icons in this group. Most notably, Scream Queen Linnea Quigley plays Trash, and Miguel Nunez of Friday the 13th Part 5 fame plays Spider. They decide instead of waiting patiently on Freddy to get off work, they're just going to go party in the barred up, abandoned, empty cemetery right next door. That sounds like a fantastic idea. Freddy and Frank end up waking up, lucky them, right? Really sick though. They know the stuff they breathe in, they shouldn't have been breathing it in. And then they wonder what happened to the body that was in the barrel that is now missing from the barrel that popped when Frank decided to slap the side of it. They assume it liquefied, which makes no sense in any way. But they head upstairs, and that's when they realize that what was dead is now alive. And they don't know how to deal with it. So they do what any normal, rational guy would do. They pawn it off on the boss and give the boss a call. Frank puts a call into Bert, and our duo soon becomes a trio. Now, back at the cemetery, Trash is telling everybody what her worst idea of death would be. And that would be a group of old men surrounding her and biting into her flesh. Well, now, then she decides to strip completely naked, save for a cozy-looking set of leg warmers, and dances atop a crypt because, when in Rome, right? For any of us who survived 80s horror, by the way, this is not a rare occurrence where Linnea Quigley just winds up peeling all her clothes off. Just so you know, Google her. Great scene where the three men are trying to figure out what to do with this reanimated cadaver, this full-sized, crazy-looking cadaver. It's just priceless. It's hilarious. Bert then remembers He's friendly with the man running the mortuary who has access to a furnace where they can burn up the bodies. They wind up convincing the mortician to go along with the plan. Problem is, when he torches this thing, a thick green smoke comes bellowing out of the exhaust stack into the night air. I thought it was really cool how when the rain started, it was pouring through the smoke and thus carrying whatever that compound was into the ground, into the cemetery, thus reanimating the dead. Shots of the corpses coming up, crawling, scratching through the earth to get to the surface was really cool as well. Really nicely done in this movie, some of the effects. Now that same mixture had sort of an acid rain effect on the street trash kids who decided to flee and seek shelter for fear of what it was doing to their skin. Now Freddy's girlfriend Tina made her way over to the medical supply store looking for her boyfriend. But all she found instead was that body that crawled out of the barrel in the basement that came to be known as Tarman. One big difference between these zombies and, say, the zombies you would see in a Walking Dead is these things apparently have brain power. They can think. In Tarman, when this girl barricades herself in a supply closet, he rigs up a pulley system to rip that door off so he can get to her because, as he keeps saying over and over again, the guy's hungry for brains. He's really, really hungry, and she just happens to have something that he desperately wants. I mean, these things are so smart that when they wind up attacking paramedics, they're able to get on the CB and order more paramedics. When the cops show up and they are overwhelmed by the zombies get on the CB and they order more cops. I mean, these things are ordering takeout. That's how smart these zombies are. Great rock song montage. Every 80s movie. I don't care if it's a horror movie, a comedy. I don't care if it's a love story. You've got to have great 80s rock music playing somewhere in the movie. And we get that when the bodies start to rise from the ground. And as prophesized, Trash winds up being surrounded by old men who just happen to be zombies. And she's bitten about and chewed on until she's dead. So Freddy and Frank are slowly turning, and we get a game of cat and mouse with the survivors bouncing back and forth between the crematorium and the medical supply house. Anyone that winds up coming to help them, whether it's paramedics or the police, they're instantly swarmed and overwhelmed by the dead. And once Frank turns, he has enough humanity left to race to the incinerator, and in a sad yet noble moment, he throws himself in and burns himself. Freddy, on the other hand, only has eyes for his girlfriend Tina and those big, beautiful brains of hers. He's after her relentlessly, which is sad because it's Tom Matthews, and you don't want to see Tommy Jarvis as the bad guy. Don't shoot, please. So now Bert ends up back in the basement with the barrels and realizes there's a number on him to call in case of emergency, and he figures that's what they're in. This is an emergency. I'm going to call that number. The call winds up being relayed to the muckety-muck that was mean to his wife, and he assures Bert, yeah, we'll take care of you. I know exactly how to handle your problem. This movie has a little bit of everything that was great about 80s horror. There's just enough levity to keep it light, even though the situation's pretty dire. And the cast is tremendous here. I mean, you got the eye candy with Linnea Quigley. You've got awesome heroes or heroes to be. It's just got everything you would want when you sit down for 90 minutes to enjoy a film. Awesome supporting players. The most advanced and hungry set of zombies we've ever seen. This one ages gracefully. It holds up today. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a really well done horror movie. This is Aging Gracefully. I'm Matthew Essex. Brains. See you on the other side.